Hello guys, welcome to the next video on Node.js tutorial for beginners, and in this video we will learn how we can pass parameters and parse parameters in URL routes using Express. So in the last video we have seen how we can pass these kind of routes, and whenever you ask or whenever you give this kind of URL, for example your IP address and port, and then whatever route you give, according to this you see the response, right? But for example you want to give the dynamic route. So for example, you have some database. Right now we don't have a database, but in the future you will be using a database and you wanted to query the database. So you want to pass some parameter. For example, you have the student database and you want the student data using his ID or his roll number or any other thing, for example, right? So how we can pass parameters in the URL, we will see in this video using Express. So what we do is we are going to, just going to copy the code which I have written in the last video for this. So just copy and paste the same code, but instead of this route, for example, you want a student route. So I'm just going to write students here, and then we want to get the student according to the ID which is given in the URL. Okay. So whenever you want to parse any parameter, you give this colon before the parameter name. Okay. So just give the colon, this kind of colon, and then any ID or name, whatever you want to give. So you can give, for example, name here, or surname, or age, anything, whatever parameter you want to pass, and we will be able to parse that parameter, and then according to this we can give the response. So for example, we want to just parse this ID which is passed using the URL route. Okay, so in the response, for example, I'm going to write that you have requested to see the student ID, and then I'm going to just give the ID. Now in order to parse this ID, we need to take this request and then dot params and then the name of the ID, for example ID itself. Okay, and let's save the code. My node is running using nodemon, so I don't need to rerun it, and I'm going to just go to the browser, and here I'm going to just give student and then the student ID, for example 12, right? And you can see I think it's students, not students, so I must give here students route, and you can see it gives me the response, you have requested to see the student ID 12, because I have passed 12 here, right? I can pass any number here and it will give me that number, right? So once again, any number, and I can see this number here, right? In the same way, I can pass the name also. So instead of ID, I can use name, and here also name, and here also name, right? So name, and I must write name here, and must save my code, and then refresh my page using some names. So for example, Mark, and then refresh, and now it says you have requested to see student name Mark. Now if you will be using some kind of a database, then you can take this name which is passed using the URL, and then you can query the database on the basis of this name, and then you can give your response. So we will take a little example. For example, we have a JSON data. So I'm going to just write, for example, var students, and then this is a JSON. So we have a student data JSON, and then I'm going to just write 1, and 1 is so roll number 1 or ID 1. So ID 1 is Mark, for example. Then ID 2 is Tom, and then ID 3 is for example John. Okay, and then I'm going to just replace here name with ID, and here also ID, and here also ID, right? But we want to reply on the basis of the ID requested. We want to give the name, right? So here I will write name, and the way you can do this is you can just take the students, because it's a kind of an associative array. You can take the student, and then using square bracket you can get the value on the basis of key passed here, right? So I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to refresh it, and I'm going to just give the ID 1, for example, right? And it's going to give me Mark, right? Because in our JSON we have the name Mark as ID 1, right? So for example 2, it gives me Tom, and then for example I pass 3, it gives me John, right? So in this way you can pass parameters as a URL routing in Express, and that's it for this video. In the next video I'm going to give you some more insights about Express, so stay tuned and please rate, comment, subscribe, and bye for now.